Let's go back and then take a look and try out what we just saw before the break. That was to adjust your tones and colors using the black point selector and white point selector. I'm going to get rid of this and we'll do this together. We'll do this together, okay? So the first thing you like to do is to look at the adjustments. Well, you probably already have this adjustment layer made. So adjustments. And then let's grab the black point selector tool, that is the top one. This time just click. You're not double clicking, just selecting it. You can see it's highlighted. And if you hold down Option, and if you bring in the black slider key in to the right directions, you start with white and then you start to see slowly introducing the area of shadows. If you let go, don't let go of your hand on the Option key, but if you let go of your slider on the levels adjustment, that white disappears. But as long as if you are holding on to Option key, if you come over to this image, it becomes like how we saw in here. What we're looking at is just slowly start bringing in the black point inward. Specify where would it be the darkest dark. It seems like to me, the doggy nose was successful for me, but you can try different areas and then see how it works for you. And then click on to specify where would it be the darkest dark. I let go of Option key.
When you select that.
Yeah. Just click on, and then let go. It shifts, it gets slightly darker. If it gets really dark, well, you can try it other times too, but okay.
What if you mess up?
If you mess up, if you haven't done many things, Command and Z, Command and Z at the same time, that will bring back one step backwards. And then you can redo. So Command Z is kind of your best friend. Once you are done with black point, let's move on to white point selector tool. I click onto white point selector, click, do the same thing, Option, hold Option, and this time I'll bring in the highlights, the white point slider in. I wouldn't wait until I see white actually. As soon as I see the head of the doggy, even if it is cyan, we all know that this picture is shifted to cyan direction. That highlight has a cyan shift. So I'm okay. I will specify the cyan shifted highlight area as my white. And then let go of it. Let go of Option.
So how do you know that it's taken? Can you automatically see?
How do I know it? Because there is changes in here too. Yeah. So if you hide or show the eyeball, basically you can see before and then after. Also, by doing so, you may be increasing or contrast or making it darker or lighter, possibly darker, I think. If that is the case, I would like you to look into the histogram, the levels adjustment layer, and this time, grab the midtone, the gamut slider, the midtone slider, and move it. You can kind of see, move it and then see if you move it to the left side, it becomes lighter because you're increasing the highlights or the brighter information more so, and then vice versa. You can fine tune this. The default number is 1.00, and you can just change this slightly. I just want to make sure that I still have the head, the textures on here, and it seems like I do. So we're doing overall the universal adjustments at this point. And you can see the improvement from one to another, don't you? And if you look at the info palette, the number system tells you that it started to, those are red and green and blue numbers started to become closer than before. Another thing you could do probably, I'm going to just look through them. Are you guys okay up to this point? Let's take a look at the projector. Let's take a look at the projector. So this is the initial adjustment using the levels adjustment. You can do slightly more adjustment using the other adjustment tools. Like for example, well, where is my number 1? Or say I have number 5 here and number 5 here. Okay. So number 5 is telling me that it has slightly more green than it's supposed to be, say. Or if I look at number 6, it's close to each other, but we can try to make it completely the same numbers through red and green and blue. Or say, number 4, number 2. If I look at number 2 here, it has green, so I can add a little more magenta, which is the opposite of green, to make it a little closer overall. So we can do that kind of point-specific adjustments because we have sampled the image, right? So to do so, we can go into adjustments. And let's take a look. We'll do this together later in the second time. Curves. And I like using these curves. I usually do all the adjustment with curves in here. If you compare levels and the curves, differences is, if you go into levels, you have 3 points of adjusting possibilities. You can adjust the shadows, you can adjust the highlight, you can adjust the midtones. Now, if I go to curves, you can still see the same shape of the histogram, right? But then it's not specified to only shadows or only highlights, or even if I don't have the midtone slider, I can adjust any tones in between shadow to highlight, any tones. That's why I like this adjustments. For example, if I get this the targeting tool here. And if I come over to certain areas like here, on the curve, you see our circle. Do you see the circle? Do you see the circle? If I go to the dark, then circle becomes at the bottom area. If I come to the head of the doggy, it becomes a highlight. So it's the top, right? These are midtones. Do you see the circle as I move around? So I can target certain areas. Do you see?
I'm sorry, how do you get the circle to show?
I'm just coming over to the image with the targeting tool. So I can target specific areas, but specific area is also connected to other areas too. Like for example, I click on this certain area, now my curve has an anchor point. And anchor point is selected. I can use the arrow key on the keyboard. I can bring this one up or down. I'm targeting this area, but this area is connected to other tones. So if I only want to change certain areas, I should probably make another anchor point and then bring this back. This curve, smoother the better, and this isn't really smooth actually. So you see weird kind of tones, but so this curves adjustment will really target our certain areas. This area is not really adjusted. Those points, it can get really crazy, by the way. And then because it gets so crazy, a lot of people tend to get away from this tool. But if you know how to use this, and then you're going to know how to use this tool, this is the most useful tool when you are doing adjustments. If it gets really crazy, those points always can come out. Drag it out. Drag it out. I can take this and take it. And then I can start neutral. Now, specific to say, I'm gonna target to number 6. Number 6 is his nose. And then there are 3 different colors RGB, different numbers. And say, I would like to make it so that those numbers will match. I can go into a point sample system, but also a point sample system specific to different colors. Like for example, I'm gonna grab red, and I'm gonna bring the red down to 35 and bring green up to 35. That's what I'm gonna try. I'm gonna go to 36 and then have the targeted tool. I'm gonna go to a point here, his nose. So now his nose has an anchor point. I'm gonna use the arrow key. Oh, it skipped 35, but it became 34. So that point now is really close to neutral, perfect neutral. I'm going to go into then blue. Targeted tool, I'm going to come over to his nose. And this time, anchor point is created. I'm going to bring this one using the arrow key. One click. Okay, so we're not living the perfect world we can see here. One click will skip 2 points. So I'm going to actually go back to where it is. So, but something like this can be done. Number two here, and those are probably too close of the tones. So I'm gonna try and see number. Oh, I found the number one. I'm gonna go to number one here, and these are numbers. I'm gonna go into red, and I'll bring up slightly a little more red in here. Click onto point one, click. My anchor point is created. That is associated with a number one, or any tones that is the same as number one. I'm going to bring this number one's red up slightly so that it becomes similar numbers. I pushed 2 times on the keyboard, on the arrow key, the top arrow key. It started to become similar. So the numbers start to become similar. I can keep touching up. And then maybe I could even go push more. And then I'll come over to blue and click onto number one. And it's slightly too high, so I'll bring that anchor point area down. Now it's much neutral than it used to be. So we're talking about the really fine tuning here. But you can do this by using the curves adjustment, going to individual color information. We have color information here anyway, so why not you use it? If the numbers are within 10 points, that is pretty neutral overall, I would say, if the numbers are within 10 points. But also, because we're not living in the perfect world, if we're in the perfect world, all of them can be neutral, but we may be not choosing the correct neutral area either. I mean, some part should not be neutral, but we are picking it as a mistake. So there are lots of reasons why those numbers may not be perfectly aligning through RGB, but these are useful guides. Would you like to look at it? Let's do this one. I'm going to get rid of this question.
I wasn't paying attention to what happened to the numbers of the first adjustment, but when you made the second adjustment at point one,
Yep.
Did that change the numbers at the first? Did it change the adjustments that you made at the previous point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So you are adding the adjustments based on my previous adjustment. Yeah. Okay. Let's try. Let's try and then see. So the second thing we did was using the curves adjustments. Curves adjustment is right next to the levels adjustment. And then find the color combination that is that is not matching. Any of them that is. So my case was number 6. I started to do number 6. I can do my number 2 too. And you simply go into, say, number 2. Go to specific colors to adjust. And this is the targeting point, the hand mark, like point out certain areas with this targeting tool and come over to the number that you specifically would like to fix. After that, you can grab this point with your mouse, but I usually like to do a fine-tune adjustment, so I usually use the arrow key on the keyboard to go up and down. And adjust it. And then you can see different points. Alright! Let me just do one more thing and let's have an open lab time. Let's work on your own. So this one, eventually, I would like you to just experiment, keep using them, and have become friend with the tool. This targeting tool, targeting the point, this is very helpful. And you can see this point in other tools as well too. For example, if you go to Hue and Saturation, so say in here, overall, I did a universal adjustment and I'm getting pretty happy with it, say. But I would like to adjust certain colors or saturation levels. And then I will go to Hue and Saturation Adjustment layer, which is this guy, Hue and Saturation. This one is not necessarily a lot to do with tones, but more so to adjust colors. This one also has this targeting tool, the hand mark. Click onto the targeting tool and say if I come over to a green area. Click. Then it specifies certain hue of green. And I can change the saturation level because this is a little too bright, say. I'm going to just bring down a little bit of the saturation level. Then it's targeting this green. If I have a green somewhere else, by the way, that green would be targeted. But this is the only green I have. So I can desaturate it and say if I come over to this coat out here, and it's surprisingly telling me that it's red. Wow. So this is, I thought it was more like a yellowish brownish, but it's saying that it's red, and I can change. Whoa. No, not that much. But just give a little color. So you can target certain colors. Changing the hue, I would be very careful. It skews. Yeah. It's fun, but you are skewing a lot of pixel information, so I'll be really careful using this tool. Okay, but that is how you can change a little bit of the colors, and then also the saturation level. You can change a little bit of the darkness or the lightness of certain given colors as well too, and that is hue and saturation. So basically, this is what we did as a workflow. We started from here, levels adjustments to do a universal first point adjustment, deciding where would be the darkest dark, where would be the lightest light of the image, and that would determine the contrast level, brightness level, and also it will help you white balance too. Curves, that's fine-tuning. Curves, that was fine-tuning to go to specific areas. That's specifically what we did with the info palette. However, by the way, we went to individual colors when we were using the curves, but you can be at RGB tones. And that would change the overall tones too, overall tones. And you can bring up the highlights slightly. You can bring down the highlights. That would increase the contrast. Or you can bring out the shadow information, bring down the highlights. That would decrease the contrast. You can do that way too. But we used a curves adjustment layer to fine-tune the color by going to individual channels. And then also hue and saturation that targeted certain colors to either saturate or desaturate, slightly changing the color to fine-tune the white balance elements too. Yes?
This dog is like, the brown is mostly in one area, but what if it was a spotted dog? And you wanted all those brown spots to be like the same color, so do you have to...
If those colors...
each one?
If he has the same spots on the top of the head, and then most likely those areas on the top of the head will be linked with the color here. I mean, I'm sampling from this coat, the back of his body, and unless the color, another spots are very different, whatever the same color would be changed together.
Okay.
Yeah.
The same color.
Exactly, right. So if I have another greeneries here, then this green as well as another green on the other side would be most likely changed. So it's all linked. I'm gonna save this. I'm going to save this one. This picture was adjusted as manual. I'm going to save as a manual vanishing point. That's the third one. I'm going to save it. It's telling me, do you want this maximize compatibility? You always want this maximum compatibility. If this isn't checked, you might have problem opening the file in Lightroom, by the way. So you like to make sure that this is always checked. Maximize compatibility, check, and then say OK. And I just saved a picture. I'm gonna go to Bridge, Desktop, and where did I save the picture? Uh-oh. Okay, Desktop, Student Storage. This is where I saved. I have 3 versions. Now, I have one original. I have another one manually adjusted. I have another one that is auto adjustments. And by the end of, by next week, I would like you to have at least one, if not both of your pictures for project 1 to have original, manual, and auto adjustments so that you can compare them. And then you can pick one that is most improved. And most improved one is the one that you're going to pick and then apply the restoration and a retouching. So in here, those two are pretty similar. On my monitor, I would like to go for this one. On the projector, I might go in, I don't know. But these are pretty similar. I might go in here. Okay, so that is the process up to having the original image, manual, and auto adjustment. You're gonna do both of them. Yeah. Okay. Questions? We have some time. Let's bring out your own scanned image and then try and see if you can apply that. Okay. If you have questions, we are here.